All right. So first thing I want to talk about is kind of overall thoughts on the matchup between IU and Notre Dame tomorrow. Excitement here in South Bend is building. Everybody is super excited.
It's exciting out here on the West Coast as well. I think the entire sport of college football is excited that we get to see first round playoff games on campus. Notre Dame, Indiana happens to be the very first one that we'll see of those four games. So I don't think I really appreciated how fun the season would be with a 12-team playoff. It's particularly fun for the Irish and Hoosier fans, but I think the entire sport has been injected with a lifeblood that I think that excitement permeates the entire nation. There's going to be a lot of eyes on that game on Friday night.
Now, last time IU and Notre Dame played was back in 1991. I want you to take us back in time. Tell me kind of what it felt like. This is an in-state matchup. They don't meet very often. So bring me back to that.
Well, 1991 playing against Indiana is a memory I'll never forget because that was my first start in Notre Dame Stadium. I was a true sophomore. I was built like an apple with toothpicks stuck in it. I hadn't fully developed in the weight room quite yet. And I wasn't quite sure who to block or what to do, but I had some vets around me. So the game moved so fast on me. But I remember that was an important game for us because it was going to set the tone. And Indiana was a respectable team. I know the program wasn't then what it is now, but it was a real live, legit team where the result mattered. And making it more impressive and important and significant for me was the fact that Bill Walsh was the announcer up in the booth. And I grew up a 49er fan in the Bay Area, so I was really aware of who he was, what he had done, what he meant to the sport of football. And he said in that game that the coaches are really high on this kid and he could have a future as a pro football player. And I was like, what? And that was the first time I heard somebody with credibility associate my name with the NFL. And I hadn't even had a start yet. That was the middle of the first one. So I will always remember that game as the moment that I gained some confidence that I could play on that level and maybe possibly achieve some of my dreams. So it's fitting all these years later that now Marcus Freeman and Kurt Cignetti's teams are wanting to accomplish their dreams, and they're going to have a big stage to do that on Friday night.
On a personal level, that was such a big game for you. Bring me back to the feeling in that stadium and how you think that will translate these years later, on Friday. What are fans and players, what can they expect from that atmosphere of these two teams matching up?
What makes a sport what it is the rivalry, it's the pageantry, it's the tradition, but that includes geography. So this is a state playoff for the state of Indiana, you will. That stadium is going to be rocking. Indiana's seen more success this season than they have in maybe all their other seasons combined. The one stat is they've lost more games than any other college football program. Notre Dame's on the other side of that, the top 5 of the games that they've won. So what makes the sport so great is opportunity. And on Friday night, that excitement of the opportunity of what they can accomplish is going to be tremendous. Going back to 1991, the feeling in the statement was one of optimism, right? We had Rick Meyer, the hot shot quarterback, and what he was going to be able to do. We had all these pieces in our class of players that would become household names, and the Bryant Youngs and the Jim Flanagans, the Jerome Bettises. And it was new. And that was the year that a lot of us as freshmen or sophomores at that time were able to see the field. So when you have games like this, the excitement and the energy and the anticipation, the anxiety of, man, what happens if we don't get it? But what happens if we do? All of that is swirling. I got tingles right now as I'm talking about it because you only get so many of these opportunities in your life. And whatever happens, win or lose, these players are going to remember every series, every play, and the fans as well. And I think this is a fair fight. So we're looking at a game where it may come down to 1 or 2 plays. I think it's going to be a lot closer than the experts out in the desert think. And it's perfect. It's cold, possibly going to snow. And I think as a result, everybody's fired out about the possibility of keeping their dreams alive.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy thinking about the fact that these schools, they're a few hundred miles away. They're not very far, a few hours, but they don't play very often. It's not often you see these two teams matching up ever.
No, and that's what's interesting about this matchup. It's like, oh, Indiana playing against Notre Dame, this college football blue blood. But if the Irish think that, they're going to be in for a rude awakening. This is a very good football team in Indiana, and Curt Cignetti is the AP Coach of the Year. In his 14 seasons, he's never had a losing season. This is the single greatest turnaround in point differential in the last 50 years. It's been phenomenal what he's been able to do and unprecedented in the modern era, in the modern era in a lot of respects. So Notre Dame is very well aware of how good they are. They're not going to underestimate them. And I think the matchup to keep an eye on is going to be Notre Dame's ability to run the football against the nation's best run defense. Nobody, Ohio State and Michigan included, have been able to successfully run the football on Indiana. That's really what turned the Irish's season around, was that they found their identity in running the football. So this is a classic strength-on-strength matchup that's really going to determine this outcome. And one team's going to advance, and the other team's going to be sitting on the couch watching the college football playoffs unfold. So the stakes are really high between two evenly matched teams. And I think because of the fact that they both reside in the state of Indiana and are so close together is just a cherry on top to a contest that's going to be out of this world regardless.
What do you think that this means and is going to mean for the state of Indiana moving forward? When we get past Friday, for seasons to come, people are now looking at Indiana like, okay, it's not just Notre Dame.
I think it's going to be great for the state of Indiana because of that. And I felt, and I'm a partner of CBS, the middle class of the Big Ten needs to elevate its game to have the national cachet and recognition that the SEC has enjoyed. Everybody's got top-heavy teams, the Big Ten included. But if you can add an Indiana, if you can get Purdue that's going to come up that just, acquired Barry Odom from UNLV, that's when the conference is cooking with grease, right? We know what happens when Wisconsin and Iowa are playing at the elite level and can go nationwide and beat teams. So for Indiana to continue this success, for them to have the success that they've had in year one under Curt Cignetti is not just good for the state of Indiana, it's good for the Big Ten Conference, and I would argue great for the sport of college football as a whole.
Any other thoughts on tomorrow's matchup? I know we touched a little bit on 1991. You talked about how you think tomorrow's going to be a good game. Any other thoughts on tomorrow's matchup?
I just think what's fascinating is how evenly matched these teams are. They're two 11-win teams. Both of them are outstanding defensively in the red zone and on offense, particularly on the offensive side. Neither team is really explosive, but has playmakers on the edge and in the backfields that can go. Both these offensive lines were semifinalists for the Joe Moore Award, so they've got good protection up front. You got two salty front sevens that have proven ability to rush the passer. Like, this is a fair of a fight as fair fights get, and I think it's fitting that we're going to get to see this game in South Bend, the first ever on-campus playoff game between two opponents that both happen to reside from the state of Indiana. Somewhere, somebody's upstairs really enjoying what's about to take place, and I know I'm going to be on my couch enjoying it as well.
I was going to ask, what are your plans for the game?
We'll be on a vacation up in the mountains, a little skiing and snowboarding. It's been a long fall for me, so I'll have the elements just outside, so I won't have to be in them like a lot of my friends and colleagues. Like, everybody I know that went to school that has an association with Notre Dame is going to be there, whether they have a ticket inside the game or not. It's remarkable, the interest, but for me, the best viewing experience is going to be on my couch when I'm warm, drinking a hot chocolate.
Nice, nice. Anything else you want to add here that you think would be, interesting to our viewers?
I think that's it. I think when you look at the matchups, games always come down to turnovers, scoring points in the red zone, an ability to control the line as a scrimmage. Elijah Surratt is a receiver for Indiana that has a tremendous catch radius, meaning you can throw that football anywhere near him. He'll be able to pluck that out of the air. So his matchup against our secondary is going to be one that is a game within the game. I just think that at the end of the day, Notre Dame and their roster is slightly above where Indiana is right now, and that those playmakers will determine what's going to take place. And I want the Irish fans to know this. I think that our ability to cheer and make noise is terrible. And I double dog dare you, Notre Dame fans, to cheer so loud that it creates the same challenges that Indiana had on the road at Ohio State. And I'm being tongue-in-cheek a little bit to challenge them because I think that that's going to be a real advantage for us. And one of the things that Indiana acknowledged and has since worked to fix was the silent snap count. If they have to use that and we can tee off our front seven against their really talented offensive line, I think that's going to be a benefit that tilts the scales the Irish way.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I really do appreciate you taking the time. This has been so much fun, and it's been a good week overall. People here are very excited. So
awesome, Juliana. Thank you. It's we're all excited, man. College football is a gift that keeps on giving, and we get to open the biggest and best present of the weekend this Friday night.
yeah, absolutely. Well, enjoy your time off, enjoy your hot chocolate, and watching the game tomorrow.
Thank you. Go Irish.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks for watching. Here's another story you may like, and subscribe to the WSBT 22 YouTube channel.